Hello again, and welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Rural Report. I am your Rural 2IC, and today we're going to talk about modes of transportation. Okay, so if we're going to talk about SHTF and long term SHTF, then you always have to have that plan for bugging out. Now, that may be one of your primary plans depending on your situation. I would advise against that. Your always primary go to should be to bug in. You should uh, do your best to give yourself that situation to where you protect your castle, right? That's where all of your stuff is. That's where you have everything to your advantage is where you bug in. Now, there's going to be instances where you have to bug out. Okay, it's not an option, and so you have to have a bug out plan. And in order to bug out to wherever you're going to go, you're going to have a mode of transportation. So let's dive into that and discuss some of these things. So, first one on the list is going to be walking. It's the one that pretty much most of us can do, barring any sort of a disability or something along those lines. And it's going to be the one that is going to be a primary or at least a contingency. So when it comes to walking, one, you are the fuel. Okay, you don't have to have technically any external fuel. Yes, I know you need to have food and water and whatnot, but as far as burning something, any sort of a combustion engine, any sort of whatever, you're the fuel. So you can do it anytime you want, day or night. You can do it during, any sort of weather inclements. There's a lot of different things that come into walking that it's one of the ones that you need to prepare to walk, regardless of whatever your mode of transportation is. So you need to have, good socks, extra socks. You need to have good shoes. You definitely don't want to be trying to hike 10 miles, especially in rugged terrain with a pair of flip flops or Crocs, right? Now, there is downsides, and this one is going to be there's exposure to the elements. If it's raining, if it's snowing, things like that, that's going to impact you not only on your speed at which you travel, but it's also going to impact, uh, you know, your health on different things. Um, the amount of stuff that you can take with you, that's going to go basically on your back. Yes, I know you can pull a wagon or whatever, but that's probably even more going to slow you down and limit the places that you can go. Uh, Remember, if you're walking, you're almost the ultimate four-wheel drive vehicle. You can basically go just about anywhere. So that should be one of the ones that no matter what your mode is, you need to make sure that you are prepared to walk. Next one is going to be the good old bicycle. And so when it comes to a bicycle, the benefits on that is again, you're the fuel for it. Yeah, I know you can get some of the electric bikes and some of the other stuff like that, but we're just talking about the good old fashioned bicycle. It gives you a lot more maneuverability, a lot more speed. Um, Depending, yes, you can hook some sort of a wagon or something to it. You're kind of limited on the amount of stuff that you can take with you, and depending, you may have to take less stuff on a bicycle than what you would walking. It's one of the ones that even young children can do. uh, there is some downsides when you're doing it. It's the same thing kind of as walking, to where you are going to be exposed to the elements. You will have kind of like mechanical, so you have to make sure, if the chain pops or you get a flat tire or something along those lines, that you have something that you can do some sort of repair. Otherwise, your mode of transportation is useless, right? So, moving on, is we're going to talk about the motorcycle or dirt bike. And if you were to try and figure out which of the two, I would lean personally more towards the dirt bike, because doing some really off road stuff in an old school Harley's probably not going to be very good. Um, A lot of these big dressers and things like that, when it comes to these bikes, they're really, really heavy. Uh, and a dirt bike's a lot more lightweight. Uh, Now, again, you're going to be right back. You're going to be exposed to the weather. They're going to be louder. Now, you are going to have a lot more speed. Both of those require fuel, so you have to take that into consideration. Both of them are going to have mechanical, so you're still going to have to deal with flat tires. Now you're getting into combustion and things like that, so you're going to have different electrical issues. Just all sorts of different things that you're going to have to take into consideration. There's pluses and minuses depending on how you look at it and what it is that you are. So if you know how to fix things, you're mechanically inclined, and you've prepared, you've taken some extra parts, you've got some tire patch kits, things like that, then there you go. If you don't, then it starts bringing it down to, is this actually a good option? Keep in mind, a lot of the bikes are still manual. So just because you know how to, if something happens to you, can somebody else utilize your mode of transportation in order to maybe get you out of a bad situation? There's a lot of people that don't know how to shift, or how to pop the clutch and get going, and these are quite a bit louder than just walking or doing a bicycle, so you have to take that into consideration. Next, we're going to move into the car. Now, the car is probably a lot of people's primary. You can carry a heck of a lot more stuff, right? Gets you out of the weather. It gives you some comforts depending on your car. You have heat, you have air conditioning, you have a radio, you have headlights, you have padded seats, you have a bigger area for cargo and different things like that. The downsides to this is they take fuel. Most, not all, most cars are front wheel drive, so it limits a little bit where you can go. It does provide more stability, but again, being two wheel drive, and you have to be careful. It does limit your off roading abilities. Now, again, probably a lot of primary people is their primary source is going to be taking the car, and it's not a bad option as long as you foresee some of the problems and prepare for it. Do you have tire plug kits? Do you have extra fuel? Do you have different things that you foresee being a problem to where you can uh, patch it and get you through until you get to a bug out location? Next is going to be the pickup truck or the SUV. Now, this is bigger. A lot of these are four-wheel drive. This gives you a much better access to off-roading. You can carry a lot more cargo in that. Gives you all the same amenities as you can in a car: the heat, the air conditioning, the padded seats. This gives you a little bit extra because it gives you more room in the cabin. So you can do different things on sleeping arrangements, and some of the ones like maybe a minivan or an SUV. Some of them you might be able to stand up a little bit more. Where in a car you're basically kind of stuck in a seated position. Now, when you get into these, a lot of these, they're a lot, um, they consume a lot more fuel. They're not as fuel economically friendly, right? As just a small car. So you have to take that into consideration. Uh, this again, depending on people, they may have to where this is going to be their primary, and I get it. We could also throw, and just kind of popped in here, you could throw ATVs and stuff in there with the motorcycles and dirt bikes and things like that. Again, you're going to run into the same problems of exposure to elements. They take fuel, they're faster, things like that. So, next one, and now we're going to go a little further off onto what most people is not their primary. Next one is going to be watercraft. Now, whether that is a jet ski, a canoe, a boat, whatever it is, depending on how big it is, you're going to have exposure to elements. Um, Depending, they're going to be either very, very silent, or they're going to be decently quiet. They'll give you a little bit of an element of safety because you'll be on a waterway, so you're definitely not just going to have somebody just walk up on you, right? Um, it does hinder where you can travel. Obviously, you got to stay on water, uh, but there's a lot of rivers and different things that snake through, so you could travel. In a lot of states, you can travel north, south, or whatever, and you can pretty much go through the entire state and stay on the waterway. Think of the really big stuff like the Mississippi and things like that. Um, there is, I know of a few people that this is going to be their primary. Depending, you will have something to where you're the fuel, you're in a kayak or a canoe or something like that. You are the fuel, or you're going to have to take fuel with you. Now, the smaller the craft is going to limit the amount of things that you can take with you. Yes, I know you can tow behind an extra raft or whatever and things like that. I get it. Now, the bigger the craft, a lot more stuff that you can take, a lot more people, supplies, gear, things like that, but it's also going to require a lot more fuel. Now, granted, technically, you don't need fuel for a watercraft. Even a pretty big boat, you can kind of figure out, different ways to paddle or whatever. It may not be efficient, and you may not get anywhere really, really fast, uh, but technically you can move, especially if there's some sort of a current. So, moving on, and here's where we start getting into the fun stuff, is going to be aircraft. There are people out there that do have pilot license and they have a Cessna or something along those lines. And I get it. You can bug out in a manner that most people cannot bug out. A lot of the Cessnas can get 10,000 feet, whatever. Um, you are going to have the most critical and dangerous when you are taking off or landing. But once you get into the skies, barring probably military, you would probably be pretty decently safe. It would give you a very good bird's eye view. There's a lot into it if you are actually going to do that, or maybe you have a helicopter or something. They do make the smaller helicopters, but again, fuel, you're going to be using a heck of a lot of fuel. You can take decent amount of stuff with you, but again, it's going to go into where you're going to land, take off from. A lot more of different mechanical issues can happen, things like that. Uh, if you have that option, I can see why it would be appealing. I don't know if I would technically put that as my primary. And then the last one, if we're really going to have fun, and if you stayed here with me for 13, 14 minutes, however long this is now, is military vehicles. Let's say that it's SHTF, military's going crazy, blah, 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 and things are starting to kind of calm down a little bit. And you come across some sort of abandoned military vehicle. Um, First of all, you have to know how to operate it. There is still a decent amount of military vehicles that are manual, and if you do not know how to shift the manual, then it's kind of useless to you, at least in transportation wise. Um, Especially, I'm going to say that most people don't know how to operate a tank or anything along those lines. Um, but if you can get into that, there is a lot of different between a tank and armored personnel carriers and other things. They do provide a level of protection. Maybe it's somewhere that you're not necessarily going to use it as travel. You found the tank. Uh, Maybe it's out of fuel. Maybe you can't even figure out how to start the darn thing. Maybe it's somewhere that you're like, look, I'm tired. It's getting dark. It might be a decent place to lock that hatch and stay. You just have to take into consideration that you might get trapped in there, right? Um, so there's a lot of different modes of transportation that you can pick. There's pluses and minuses to every single everything, whether it's food, water, medical, whatever. When you think that you have the best thing, there's always somebody that's going to have an argument and a counter for it. You have to personalize it. You have to pick the thing for you that's going to make the most sense for you. If you have grandma in your group and grandma's in a permanent wheelchair, and your bug out location is to scale the Rockies, it's probably not going to work out. And you have to be very realistic, and you have to be honest with yourself. And you have to either figure out how to get grandma going with the group, or you need a new travel plan. Uh, and make sure that you do pace when it comes to your travel and your transportation. You need a primary, you need an alternative, you need a contingency, and you need an emergency. You should have at minimum two ways of traveling, and then really four would be the best you possibly can. And walking needs to be in there. If you are not planning on doing walking, then you definitely need to go back and reevaluate your plan. Uh, Out of every single one of them, walking should probably not necessarily be your primary. It can be, and I know a lot of people that is theirs, and there's nothing technically wrong with it. It's just not the most efficient, but maybe it's the one that works for you, and in that case, it's fine, right? So, just a little bit of just modes of transportation, the pluses and minuses. It's something to think about. Uh, Hopefully, if you don't know what your mode of transportation is when SHTF happens, maybe this video will give you that little bit to where it'll start making you think about it. So, with that, I hope you got something out of this. I want to say that I hope you have a good day. I hope you have a blessed day. Stay tuned because there's definitely more information to come. And with that, I want to remind you, remain united because we're all prepping in this together.